Welcome to Leading Opinion, where we feature some of Africa's and the world's best thought leaders on a diverse range of topics. Today we speak to author and world-renowned behavioral specialist Dr. John Demartini. Now, he frequently visits South Africa and hosts a broad range of seminars. The Demartini Institute is essentially dedicated to exploring and expanding human awareness. The bottom line is for everyone across the world to be in a position to become masters of themselves and inspired leaders of others. Well, let's meet Dr. Demartini. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Leading Opinion.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to explore an article you wrote on equanimity and equity. If you can put that into perspective and how that's relevant to personal development and define these characteristics for us.
Okay. Equanimity is a state where you have balance, where you're poised, where you're present, where you're most authentic. Many people have periods in their life where they kind of puff themselves up and they tend to exaggerate themselves or put themselves down and tend to minimize themselves instead of center themselves. And when we go into a puff up, we tend to go narcissistic and try to expect things from others. We put ourselves down, we tend to go altruistic and expect ourselves to do things for others. But when we get into the center, we have what I call sustainable fair exchange mentality. And we have an equanimity within ourselves, and we have a tendency to have equanimity or equity with other people. We don't put them above us, below us, but we put them in our heart. I always tell people that it's not wise to put people on pedestals or in pits, but it is wise to put them in our hearts, because they're a reflection of us.
Absolutely. How do you get to this level? How do you begin this wonderful journey of getting to a space of inner peace?
Well, I always say that each individual lives by a set of priorities, a set of values in their life. Things that are most important to least important in their life. Whenever they set goals that are congruent and aligned with what's truly most important to them, they have a tendency to embrace both support and challenge in the pursuit of those goals. But whenever they're not doing something that's really meaningful and not really important to them, something lower on the value list, they tend to want to give up if it becomes challenging, and they will only do it if it's supported. Only if it's pleasure, not pain. And as a result of it, they have more volatility, and they tend to go into the volatilities of exaggerating or minimizing themselves. So whenever we set goals, if we set goals that are truly authentic to us, not ones that we're expecting from other people, but things that are meaningful to us, according to our own highest values, we have the highest probability of having equanimity within ourselves, more stability and equity between ourselves and others. Whenever we live by our highest values, we tend to activate our telencephalon, our medial prefrontal cortex, the executive center in the brain, where we may be able to execute and plan and execute and achieve goals. Whenever we don't, and we live by lower values, we tend to activate our amygdala. We tend to avoid pain and seek pleasure, kind of like an animal. It is wiser to be true and authentic and be balanced in our perspective if we want to have a mastery of life, fulfillment in life, inspired life, and have an inner peace.
Well, I certainly assume that equanimity was where you have to develop this kind of like an emotional intelligence, be able to drop emotions so that you can react better to situations. Is that the same thing?
Yes.
What you're saying when you say being authentic?
Yeah, because if we're infatuated with something and we see more advantages and disadvantages, and we put something up on a pedestal, we're usually blind to the downsides, and it occupies space and time in our mind and runs us. If we resent things and see more drawbacks and benefits, more pains and pleasures, we tend to have it occupy space and time in our mind too. We can't get it out of our mind.
And that causes disharmony.
This is what causes it. Imbalanced perspectives of the world around us lead to imbalanced physiology and psychology within us. And whenever we have those states, we have to learn the art of asking questions that bring balance back to our mind. I always say that our intuition is always trying to bring equanimity back to us, but our emotions sometimes would dramatize things. And so we have what is called a negative feedback system to bring us into balance, and a positive feedback system which dramatizes it.
How do you know the difference between intuition and emotions that come to play?
Well, emotions are when you have an imbalanced perspective, and your intuition is always trying to reveal to you the side that you're not seeing to balance it. So if you're infatuated with somebody, your intuition is trying to say, watch out, there's a downside here. And if you're down and resentful to something, it's trying to point out the upside. When you listen to the intuition, it takes you back to balance, which then leads to inspiration. A perfectly balanced mind is something that's grateful, because it senses an inner order and an inner sense of peace. It automatically opens up the heart where love is. Love window washes the mind and brings inspiration, and that brings enthusiasm back into the body. So gratitude and love of the heart, inspiration of the mind, enthusiasm of the body are signs of equanimity, and also signs of equity between other people. When we're in business and we talk down to people, our employees or our customers, and think that what we are and what's important to us is more important than them, we tend to mismanage them and misread our customers. When we do, we don't meet the needs of those people, and then they don't have productivity or we don't have purchases. And so, but if we minimize ourselves, we'll sacrifice our profits in business, and we'll end up having anarchy in our business. So we have to learn equanimity, and equanimity within ourselves and equity between ourselves and the people we care about. The second we help other people get what they want to get in life, we get what we want to get in life.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting, but it sounds a bit complicated.
Well, in a boiled down to it, if you don't care about your customers' values and needs and what they really want in their life, and you don't meet those needs, you're out of business.
The way I also see equanimity to some degree is how we are able to deal with specific situations in our life. And the reason I said it's complicated, because I'm assuming that sometimes we react unconsciously to situations, maybe because of psychological or physiological disorders that we may not be aware of, and this could impact on the way that we react. So,
well, the thing is that today there's a very common motif in psychology, psychiatry, that you have a biochemical imbalance, and that's the reason you're having these perturbed states. But I always say that your biochemistry is changing based on your perceptions. If a tiger came in the room and was about to stomp on you, your cortisol levels, your testosterone levels and everything would skyrocket. You'd have an imbalance. So it's not because you have an imbalance, but because your perception just led to it. And many times we have unconscious stored perceptions that have never been balanced, that are sitting there inside our psyche, that are affecting our brain chemistries and leading to these outcomes which we diagnostically identify. So I always say it's wise to, you have no control necessarily of that internal physiology and that biochemistry from within, but you do have it by changing your perceptions. And your perceptions are changed by the questions that you ask. If you ask, why is this terrible thing happening to me? You get one answer. If you say, how is it serving me? And how can I use it to my advantage? And how and where is the other side to it? Then we end up having a poised and present state. So the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. The questions we ask determine the perceptions we perceive, and those perceptions affect our chemistry. So I don't want to just blame chemistry, because I see this all the time. People use that as their excuse instead of just being accountable for their perceptions and their decisions and their actions.
But it's about getting to a space of accountability, and of course you offer a process in which we can ask these relevant questions. Tell us about the process that you offer to get to the space of equanimity, to get to the authentic being, so that we can have harmony in our lives consistently.
Well, everybody lives, as I said, by a set of priorities and values. I usually ask, because if they don't know what those are and they keep trying to live by other people's goals, they're going to end up frustrating themselves and having volatility. Anytime you're not living by your highest priorities, your highest values, the unfulfillment that emerges from that makes you look for immediate gratification and you might say addictive behavior and compulsive and impulsive behavior to compensate for it. Wisdom is knowing what's really important to you and pursuing it. There's a law in business called Parkinson's Law. If you don't fill your day with things that are inspiring to you, that are meaningful, that are priority, your day will fill up with things that distract you and are low priority and causes more turmoil in your life. So you have to know what's really important to you. So you got to look at how you fill your space, how you spend your time, how you spend and what energizes you, where do you spend your money, where are you disciplined, where are you organized, what you think, visualize, and talk about most, what you converse with other people about most, what your real goals are, and what inspires you and what you want to learn. If you look at these value determinants, it'll tell you what truly is important to you, not what you think it is. When I've asked thousands of people what they think are important to their values, most of them say social idealisms, because they're subordinating to people on the outside, living vicariously through other people. But if I look at what their life demonstrates what's really valuable to them. The second they orchestrate their life and plan their life and start living their life according to what's truly important to them, their fulfillment level goes up. They have a higher level of equanimity, higher level of equity, they're more stable, they're more empowered, and they produce and consume, in a sense, levels that are more moderate, and in the process of doing it, they're thankful in life.
So what you're saying also, if we can reach the space of equanimity and equity, we can also have great relationships, romantic relationships, great working relationships, because we're living from that space of authenticity.
Everybody wants to be loved for who they are. And who they are is an expression of their highest value. That's their identity. If your highest value is raising beautiful children and you're a mother with 3 children, if somebody asks you, who are you? You'll say, I'm a mother. If somebody was to come to me, they'd say, Dr. Demartini, who are you? I'd say, I'm a teacher, because I spend my time teaching. Whatever's highest on your value, your identity revolves around. And people want to be loved and appreciated for that. So when you're living congruently with that, and you're fulfilled in that, and you allow other people to do the same and help them fulfill that, they can't wait to be around you, and you can't wait to be around you.
But you first have to understand and know what your values are.
That's why you need to look at what your life demonstrates.
And is that important in a relationship, to be able to talk to each other's values?
Well, the wisest question I noted to ask in a relationship is, how is what they're dedicated to, what their highest values are, how does it help me fulfill what I'm dedicated to, my highest values? And how is what I'm dedicated to, my highest values, helping them fulfill what they're dedicated to, their highest values?
And that's where you create a balance of power and equity.
That's when you have equity between the two people and equanimity within yourself. Because when you both are helping fulfill each other's values, you feel naturally drawn magnetically to each other and have an appreciation, respect for each other. You have a match.
What if you don't agree with your partner's values?
Well, you're not going to.
Or if your partner's value is, his highest value is freedom, and your value is family, and that's...
Well, if you expect him to live in your values without selling them on the idea. See, anytime somebody in a relationship wants to get the other person to do what they want, they have the responsibility of communicating what they want in terms of the values of the partner.
So you have to talk to the partner's values.
You have to talk in the partner's values, not to it,
okay,
but in it. Because if you don't talk in their values where they feel that they're getting their values met, they're not going to want to do it. And nobody wants to be told how to be. They want to be loved for who they are.
And that's when we have disharmony in relationships.
The disharmony is when two people are both expecting each other to be themselves. And that doesn't work. If any two people are exactly the same, one's not necessary. So a healthy relationship has a nice bartering and bantering mechanism going on between support and challenge, a nice balancing act. So if you have somebody with a different set of values, that doesn't mean you can't have a great relationship. It just means that you have to find out how what they're dedicated to and what they do value is going to help you get what you want. Because if you can't see it, you're going to want to change them. And they don't want to be fixed. They want to be loved.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Demartini. Always a pleasure to have you with us.